And that's something that a lot of teams tend to struggle with.
And I wonder how Kitsune in particular was able to adapt to that. Thinking back to G Gladiators, the rotations were always slow.
Yes.
And you obviously had the off-angle player, but now you have Nomi, who's just on a completely different level within this roster, who can play it more successfully. It's such a hard change in mentality, I think, for Kitsune to get around to having to in-game lead.
Just to give you a quick image here, it's like if you had an MG3 and you never fired it, you know? But here, they are trying to fire it as much as possible. So yeah, the quick rotates of Team Spirit are looking fantastic. And clearly, this is the best this team has ever looked in like 3 years now, it feels like.
I mean, Kitsune has come close to taking that trophy. Maybe this will be the year, but there's still a lot of other teams looking to battle their way towards the top to lift the trophy for themselves and maybe get some cool gold jackets, which I think maybe we might try to steal if we can, because those look fantastic. Those actually, it's a normal jacket for you. More of a tank top for me, but it is time to head into our first Erangel of the day. Let's throw it back to our commentators with John, Allen, and Blake.
Into Erangel we go for the first time to the grassy pastures. The plain path will take us over once more from Georgia Pole down to Sosnovka military base. It's match 2. It's time to get stuck in.
Super Western plain path, actually. This is a difficult one to play off the back of this, but teams have started to already gather some of those points on board already, and Falcons are doing well. To start things off as well for Falcons Strong is a big deal for that team. That team runs off the back of momentum. If you get a lot of points day 1, it just makes your life so much easier going into day 2 and day 3. Getting a buffer already sorted out for yourself, especially in a tournament like this, it is so beneficial because you're looking for that first place. You're not looking for second and third anymore to get that direct invite. You're already here.
You've already made it all the way. You're on the doorstep. It's just a question of turning the key. And could we see a back-to-back Mongolian world champion here at the PMGC? We're denied that back-to-back performance from IHC. They didn't quite make it, unfortunately, but we do still have 2 representatives from the region to try and duke it out with the rest of them. 4MV and, of course, the Falcons, who we've been talking about for the last little while. We'll see if they're able to put up the numbers when it matters. The Western Plain Path proving to be troublesome here, maybe on the military island. Taking a look down on the south side, Blank, you've got Thunder Talk, you've got 4MV, you've got Na'Vi as well, all the way on that south edge. Going to be competing for vehicles, potential for a little bit of trouble as the circle displays a northwest side.
Yeah, an interesting one as well, considering the fact that I think we assumed it would be Falcons as well as 4MV duking it out down towards Sosnovka. In fact, it's Thunder Talks as well as Na'Vi to join alongside 4MV here. Thunder Talks taking slightly less loot over towards this western side, a bit more of a split drop. I imagine Na'Vi's going to quickly get their way over towards Novo, but initial couple of shots here coming through from Influence Rage over towards Incilio as they pass on by.
Looking like Oscar Piastri there, getting across in the McLaren. Nice and quick, away out of there scot-free. With the vehicle as well, which is probably the major benefit, right, of dropping onto that location, grabbing that vehicle, folding it back in towards Incilio, and they will be able to move up on north. No early knocks coming on through. A little bit of damage over towards Thunder Talk. That was on that south side military island. And for now, it seems to have settled down. But I'm imagining that those bridge crossings will be treacherous, given there are 3 teams on there, and Influence Rage are around the mouth of that west side bridge.
Yeah, Influence Rage definitely holding people out here. With a northwest shift on the circle, though, you're likely to expect a lot of teams to start making their way on upwards. It does become a little bit congested over on that northwest side, especially with Everest, that large feature over towards the north. You'll have to scale that if you want to cross on over, but more likely teams will move either west or east around it, which will cause those traffic jams. So teams want to get ahead of that or wrap over towards the north side of the map. So shooting range Severny, which is currently controlled by Tong Jiabao. The Vicious do have an outpost in Bruno's Inn, which is fairly interesting, actually.
Could come in clutch for them, but we'll have to wait and see. Still early doors on this match, Blank, so we're not too far into this one. We're expecting teams who dropped out early to be out of their looting phase around now, looking to start to marshal their forces. The teams on the south, they're going to be a little bit longer, but no more than a minute. Thunder Talk actually already on the road on the east side, and they've gotten across that bridge nice and early. Incilio not in a position, after breaking out all the way towards Milton, by the way, to contest that one. Influence Rage still holding around that west side bridge, but now with Na'Vi and Novo and 4MV in the military base, it seems like they may only catch one team, but Are they going to pull a CAG Osaka and stop 4MV dead in their tracks as they try to cross?
I think 4MV here, they'll likely wait a while. I think with this kind of circle, it actually encourages teams to leave those bridge camps quite early. It's sort of unnecessary to stick around here for too long. So I think for 4MV, if they just wait until stage 2, stage 3, they'll likely make it in scot-free, honestly. For Incilio, it is an interesting rotation that they go for. They weren't happy with any of the alternative drops over towards that western side. So instead, like you said, cut right across over towards Milta, which is a good position to play, although they were very unlooted by the time Thunder Talks made their way through past them. So they weren't able to put up any kind of fight in that location.
Meanwhile, over in Georgia Pole, teams are starting to move through. A very central location is sat on those crates of South George, right? Guild are there. Alpha 7 on that north side going to be overseeing it. DRX, currently the team to be on top of Everest, but they are also with a duo down towards those crates, towards those bridges as well. So 2-2 split right now for DRX. Teams from that east side are going to start to move their way across. And in general, those crossings around Georgia Pole are going to be so important to get under control.
Especially the bridge crossings, like they are very, very important for a lot of squads in terms of getting across. D+ move over towards Rozok, but RCB already makes a quick getaway over towards Box Compound on that northern side, just underneath shooting range, actually. You got Alpha 7 over towards the northwest. They gave a lot of ground, actually. They still have an outpost on the eastern side of North George here, which is absolutely fine and will work out for them. But I think for Alpha 7, they're trying to give space as much as possible. They know teams are going to start to cram in over towards that northeast side. It's going to get very tight, but I do think that Alpha 7 makes the right call here. I think that trying to hold all the way on that eastern edge too early could lead to some early knocks, which you don't want for Alpha 7. I think they're a team that can do a lot of work when it comes to that end game, and that's likely what they're shooting for here.
Oh, we're rolling out with the Grand Prix here on McLaren. Just looking fancy with those buggies. I mean, I'm liking the design. The colors, pretty snazzy as well. I like it. Max only got the orange one, you know. He's behind.
That's the best one.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think? Okay, fair enough. Well,
that's the cool one.
Okay, all right.
It's the faster one.
Do you think? Does orange make it go faster?
Yeah, if you believe it.
Okay, I believe you.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Oh, well. D+ Kia, they are making their way across, trying to go as fast as possible on the east side. Breaking across that central island, always a treacherous crossing, that central island blank. If you can't make it all the way across in one go, you're kind of stuck out in the open, you're really exposed. So getting across there, an important navigational point, and doing so uncontested, highly valuable if you can enact it. So D+ Kia with their outpost, going to make that a little bit more secure, but they're not all across just yet. 4MV, they're moving in from that south side. They have gotten past that bridge influence rage, allowed them to do so. Na'Vi, they're very late to leave the island, and actually Incilio are still in Milta, so potential for trouble here on the east side.
Yeah, it's seriously awkward actually for Na'Vi, because this is technically the right time to be making a move for Na'Vi, but I don't think they expected a team to move all the way across to Milta. This is a hard read for them to make. So I think for Na'Vi moving out now, it's still smart, and we'll see if they can squeeze their way past Incilio without too much contest. They are taking the safe route, actually moving over towards that western side, cutting out sight lines on the east. So well done to Na'Vi. They make the right call, the right move. It's going to take slightly longer to move through this area on the beachhead, but it is safer at the end of the day. I think for Na'Vi, they want something a little bit safer after that last game, where they weren't able to get a huge amount of points off the back of it. Only 2 eliminations were found there for them. In the meantime, T-Spirit did move out of farm. They're over on the southeast edge of this one. It's not ideal, but again, so could move down towards the southeast, cut in more of that space. It's been a while since we've seen a Zaki circle.
We're going to find out in about 10 seconds, Blank, where the next circle is going to pop. The zone has to shrink first, and then we'll know where we go. Thunder Talk on the north side, they've swung through and have gotten into the shooting range. Hills, it's over towards Everest and South George here, with the hospital in as well. That west coast rotate, a straight shot for Void Donkey ID.
Yeah, it's a horrible place to be. A lot of field in this area, which is somewhat unplayable space. It makes it very hard to move through because it is so open. A lot of times when you move through in vehicles as well, because there's not a load of hills that you can hide behind, getting spray downs onto vehicles is very easy. So I do think that you've got to be a bit worrisome moving through this area, which is why Void Donkey is going so fast on this western side. They do not want to be caught out while teams are set up already. They went at the right time whilst teams are all just migrating across inside inside their vehicles. But there is a spray coming through from Doc. Not much found off the back of it, though, unfortunately.
No, they're just pushing Team Spirit a little bit further away, and actually, Narvalo's ready for it. Matic does get spotted, and Enigma Galaxy, yeah, there's no way you get Matic back up there, so Team Spirit playing on as 3, the first elimination actually to come through in this match blank. So we're up to 9.5 minutes before that's come on in, and a hardware shift is what has delivered it to us. Team Spirit do manage to find the ridgelines, though, out on the western side, and will be a little bit safer now for the time being. However, losing a player this early, always not ideal.
Yeah, having to squeeze through this area, and I mean, Team Spirit had to move very early, right? You know, they had to be up early in the morning to make that move, just purely because where they were positioned beforehand, like, there wasn't a lot of time to go for it. I honestly don't think they were too unhappy with that approach either. Being able to get over towards this western side and only losing 1 player off the back of it, there is potential to squeeze more points out of this game, as opposed to getting cut in over on that southeast side, where unless you already have a compound, you're definitely in a bad spot. So I think for Team Spirit getting down towards this location is good, but for Enigma Galaxy, now they have info on that location. They know it's a weakened team, so that's always something that they can put under pressure later on in the game.
On the top of Everest. DRX have been in this 2-2 split for a while, Blank. They have their other 2 out to the west side now, after moving them away from South George, and they will be fending off against a forward push from D plus Kia, 2 South Korean teams at the top of Everest there. Guild, they've been in these crates, in these warehouses, the south side of George for a while. They've transitioned over fairly successfully here, but there's a lot of open ground to their south now that's covered off from positions like Hospital, from Everest as well. So if Guild get the circle, they're going to be great, but once they have to move, not so lucky.
Incilio cuts out the member on the back line there for 4MV, which is very unfortunate news for them. Baron going down, it was impossible to get the res through. And again, for 4MV, it's a similar situation to Na'Vi. It's a very hard read. The reason Na'Vi gets away with it earlier is because they sort of preempt it, right? That is the typical rotate you want to make through on the beachhead, just in case. That really was just a just-in-case play. For 4MV, I don't think they were expecting anything like this. I think they thought that they were final team to get into the zone. Incilio being here is a big surprise to us and to them. For D+, though, they do move over towards the eastern side of Everest, getting 2 players up top. They might recall the rest of the squad, but it is Thundertalks moving through, and it's actually a good thing they still have 2 players out on that eastern side. They're able to listen out for the vehicles and get some info over towards that area of the map.
And be that double threat. From the top of Everest, it's always difficult to get those spray downs as well, so having those low ground angles to assist, to make sure that the cover is never secure for Thundertalks moving around them, good stuff. But D plus Kia looking now to regroup. Thundertalks actually pushing Nolbu off of that low ground, so they need to be careful. Was that another player from 4MV getting caught? I think it was, unfortunately. So now it's just Doc and Reefus for 4MV to play on the southeast side. From their compound, they're right towards the edge. It's going to be really difficult to extract value out of this match to try and keep up the pace with the top of the tables.
At the moment, 4MV cosplaying as Fish because they are getting caught left, right and center at the moment. It's a bit unfortunate for this team, but we saw it in the group stages. This is nothing new for us here. And 4MV going down to 2 players nice and early in the game, it's bad news for them. And I mean, for 4MV, the stocks weren't too high coming into PMGC anyway, but there is still 2 more days and the 4-1 matches to play after this one to kind of get some more points on the board and redeem themselves after these first couple of games. I mean, that first one on Sandhawk, not too bad, but it didn't feel massively explosive from that squad. It was more of a survival tactic from them. Here's the Vicious, though. They're currently over towards the northeast side of the map, making their way through from box compound. Now, every single team has made that crossing from the northern side and is roughly in the circle, albeit you still got Team Spirit as well as Incilio with a couple of players on the outside, but I think both of those teams will be making their way in shortly. If Kitsune can hold down this central location inside the field, it will be fantastic for the squad, but it's not a super secure position. You really do have to be on the ball over towards that area of the map.
Very difficult to play in with numbers reduced for Team Spirit, playing as 3, all the harder. Vicious now pushing up towards the top of Everest and open up towards Nolbu. It's good for the first. Vicious moving on in. They haven't taken a knock yet either. But there is that trade finally found, but it's 1-for-1 again on that engagement. And with the earlier flush they found, it's not looking too good for D plus Kia, but they are still struggling through. Fabian and Osal on the top of the high ground here. A nade over from Diminor to get them low, but there's that spray down. 2 players left for D+ Kia, but they're still giving it a good go.
It was equalized pretty quickly, and for D+, it was a real big struggle. Great nade comes from down the hill, and that will be D+ Kia going out on the top of Everest, taking a big old tumble down towards the bottom, and it certainly was a vicious play, but here's someone else who's got some talking to do. It is the Thunder Talks, looking to shout some nades down towards the Vicious. That looks to be pretty much on target.
Oh, gets one. That re-knock immediate. Diminor not taken down by it, but there's plenty more where that came from. Left in the back pocket. Thunder Talk, look for the spray downs, but Diminor has the answer. High, we're now with the nade cooking, looks to put the pressure on, continue that one going through, the flashes there, but Diminor once again fades the full knock. Unfortunately, the second time around, not so lucky. Circle shifts away, and Thunder Talk make their way in. TJB, however, now in their way.
Nice old-fashioned M4 spray down coming through from the Thunder Talks. Good initial play as well, assuming where they'd be rezzing off the backside of the cliff. Fantastic stuff from Thunder Talks, but again, now you have to fend off versus Tongji Bao, who have moved in on towards that northeast side. For Thunder Talks, it gets a little bit difficult. So it's our 2 PEL teams going head-to-head here.
From this northeast side, it's still all to play for access to this next circle. The shift goes down to the fields, by the way, Blank. On that southwest side, where Kitsune had the middle, now has neighbors in RCB. Team Spirit on a wide spread on that southwest edge. Na'Vi, Alpha 7, both potentially looking to push in there. So Team Spirit need to be careful, need to have their wits about them. Thunder Talk in this fight, still trying to move around the edges of Everest here. Seemingly looking to try and slip around the side of TJB, not take this fight head on.
I mean, stage 4, it hurts, and I don't really think you can be taking a fight with Tongji Bao at the top of Everest. You have to move around, but I think even Thunder Talks know that where they're going in the circle is somewhat no man's land. Let's see if they can push through and get the battering ram going versus 4MV on Doc and Reefus, as well as Rage. Couple of roll downs, though, over towards RCB, and Alpha 7 start things off strong.
Hopefully he's on the wet weather tires, because he has got a blood trail line behind them. One flush goes through over towards Alpha 7. But that is going to leave them with a second going down. RCB, sure, they're swept aside, but Alpha 7 now under pressure from those off angles. Na'Vi are behind them. Team Spirit are ahead of them, or at least Kitsune is, rather, in this central field position. The smokes are starting to bloom. With McGrellan down, keeping 3 players up, rather, is the priority for Alpha 7.
Team Spirit find those shots. I mean, Na'Vi also has eyes over towards this. This is not an ideal spot for Alpha 7. They can make it work, certainly. Insilio, though, still sending those shots ringing out over towards the eastern side. And they have had a lot of impact on this game, despite having a very late start into this one, John. Thunder Talks sat down in the grass. Themselves alive as long as possible. 4MV over towards their north side, but equally not in a great spot. With Influence Rage looking to move off the crest of Everest. Likely life's going to get a lot harder. Guild will try to hold out versus Tongji Bao. Good shots from 4MV, but it's sent back and traded.
TJB looking to try and fend off as Guild move on in towards the foothills of Everest. Spray downs looking good for the first, but not quite fully connecting. Finally, there's a knock found as Tongji Bao actually have nades sent back towards them as well. Gilda giving the fight a good go. Effect trying to hold off against Na'Vi, almost solo, but in comes the backup. Nomi is here just in time to light up from the sidelines. One more to go. Can he keep Puncher at bay? 6 is too far away to go for this fight immediately, so if Nomi can get the res, if he can get the heal, it's big news for Team Spirit. The push comes out, the pump action, ready for it. 6 now, looking to put the nade over towards him, but the fade back from Nomi down the channel, stays alive. Effect maybe not so lucky, but Team Spirit still have that outpost.
Incredible stuff from Nomi. Actually runs back with the nade ticking. Won't go far enough, and it will be 6 to understand exactly what's happening here. Really, really well played from Na'Vi. Kitsune went down off in the distance as well, and that will be Team Spirit out early once again. Only 1 elimination found from that one, sitting Team Spirit down towards 13th place. All the while, Alpha 7 finds themselves some more points, but it is Falcons, in fact, over towards this northwest side, taking a knock and a flush versus Voin Donkey.
Voin Donkey ID doing well on this northwest side. Alpha 7 do have sightlines over towards it. Zeta with the roll down. The nades over towards Guild, still giving TJB a little bit of pause, but 2 players alive for Guild, only the 1 for TJB. That will get finally shut down on the northwest side as we're hopping over with Void Donkey. That was Falcons getting taken down. That was, I think, 0 points on the match there. So 21 total on the first 2 games. Still good, but maybe not what they were looking for, given that they earned all of those in the first match.
Yeah, it could have been a good starting point for them over on the northwest side, but they didn't cut in between Void Donkey as well as DRX, who did get that final blow over towards the Falcons. It's a rough spot to be in. It really was. Guild, though, now moving out into the fielded area. And again, I haven't really talked about it too much, but this is an absolute desperate circle for a lot of teams. The fielded area contains so much of it. Na'Vi's going to have a field day here, down towards that southwest side. The fact that they have so many sightlines looking over towards the northeast edge, they can cause a lot of problems for a lot of these teams and poke a huge amount of holes in the squads.
Yeah, with that low ground ridge they've got to play on the south side of the road, could be huge for them. Alpha 7 as well in the middle. They've got those defilés that Kitsune was holding down earlier, but you spoke about how difficult that is to navigate, and especially as 3, Alpha 7 losing one of their players on the roll-up. They get success positionally, but will they be able to keep that under the belt?
It's a position that gains value over time, realistically, because early on in the game, you have a lot of these third parties coming through, and defending on a 360 angle from this position is hard. But if Alpha 7 can isolate a fight over towards the west versus Void Donkey, there is much better prospects for them in the future. Though, Void Donkey, not a team to be messed around with here. DRX still on that north side. In the meantime, what we're watching at the moment is Influence Rage versus Incilio, who have held out for the longest time down towards the south side.
Making some cheeky rotations so far this match. The Milter flex out, giving a lot of teams something to think about during this match and maybe causing a little bit of chaos, but now into the late game, that effect is going to start to reduce. It's all back to Incilio and what can they do in these late game situations. They can't really fall back on the surprise factor anymore. Teams are going to know that they're here. How do they play these open fields? Because it is really, really tricky stuff right now. You can see open ground ahead of them for as far as the eye can see.
Teams are relying on luck and blessing.
Ooh.
Circle moves over towards that northeast side. Enigma Galaxy immediately reacts. Snowyx sends out to scout versus DRX, but he's in a dangerous spot right now. In the midst of this team, somehow not down just yet, but Ralph will find one onto Hyunbin immediately. Snowyx does get taken down, but in comes the rest of Enigma Galaxy to provide backup.
Only one player now remaining to stand for DRX, but he's already getting lit up from the sidelines on the swivel, but can't find anything. He's blinded by the smoke. There's a third-party push coming through from Void Donkey ID onto this area as well, as Redox runs them through. But there's an off-angle knock coming on in, and it's just back and forth between these two teams with that third party, Vexy on the Mini 14. What can you do under this amount of pressure?
In comes Narvalo, drops the smokes, drops the stuns, tries to create a portion of the circle they can continue to play in. In comes more nades, but a player on 1 HP trying to keep the dreams of DRX still alive. 2 players get knocked, but Ralph can move in. Great play from him to back it all the way off, just in case a nade came through, trusting in his teammates to finish the job. But Alpha 7 taking shots over towards Void Donkey. Like I said, if they can isolate an angle, they might have a better time of it.
Incilio looking to push through the open fields as well towards Influence Rage. You can see they got protection from Alpha 7's position. They're preoccupied. And Incilio used that opportunity to move up across the open ground. The damage done to Influence Rage, but there is a nade sent back towards Redlick. Lorazin on the off angle, finds the flush as well. Westron looking to find the final players of Influence Rage, but not quite connecting there. And not able to finish that roll-up successfully and cleanly. Incilio still with 3, and they've still got the hovercraft roll down, and it's a specialty of Incilio. Out and towards the off angles, Lorazin gets clipped, and that's Westron to find it. Draws the attention, draws the eye with a hovercraft, but it's the M4 to put him down in the end.
And yeah, the great distractor apparently here in the hovercraft. Dude's just needing to send bullets into it, but you can't really with the fact that Westron's on the back lines of a nades in hand. Still, it's only 2 players knocked. This is very recoverable here for Influence Rage. Not with that kind of nade, though, that comes over the top side. Westron peeks ever closer over towards them. A getaway in full pursuit, but Westron is not having any of it.
And with the team on the north, Enigma Galaxy re-establishing themselves with all 4 players on the north side, Influence Rage have nowhere to go. And they will get eliminated. 6th place, 3 elims. Top 5 teams now remain. We've got Na'Vi, we've got Incilio. Alpha 7, they have been taken down in the process of this match. Na'Vi moving across that road have been able to successfully take control.
Not quite yet, still have Revo up. So Alpha 7 is alive, and they can push further into this game. Revo's going to likely just keep himself and his nose clean for a little bit longer. We know this guy does very well in endgames. He was there right to the end there on Sandhawk as well. So I wouldn't count him out just yet, but with Voindonkey still having to move in, it all depends whether Na'Vi is going to hold them out or not. Incilio, though, with some of the most ridiculous plays in the hovercraft there, which I genuinely think Influence Rage was so confused by and bamboozled that they couldn't do anything about it. But Incilio, they will find themselves a strong position down towards the south, but here's the time for Enigma Galaxy to shine.
Moving in, stretching their supply line from the north side. Circle goes to the southwest side, and Narvalo is already in it. But Incilio on the southeast side, Na'Vi on the west. These are the two teams that need to hold their ground now. And Voindonkey ID lose 1 to Na'Vi's position. That west side, really difficult, but they've got a lot of eliminations so far, Blank, from that northwest side. Their fight with Falcons, Team Spirit as well, over on that northwest side, has gone well. Voindonkey ID have got value from this match already. They're into the top 4. Can they move through Na'Vi?
This is a team with 3 rookies on side, is Voindonkey. They are extremely good coming into this PMGC. No one really expected it, no one saw it coming, but over the progress of survival stage, the last chance, it felt like they were just absorbing more and more experience as they went on. And they're coming into this one as a fearsome beast. They've leveled up, absolutely. Now Na'Vi feels the brunt of the pain coming through from Voindonkey as they start to hoof them out the side of the circle.
2 knocks sent their way, and RV down to 1. Lemon run for the hills, looking to get squeezed out here by Voindonkey ID. The nades continue to pour on in. Those flushes are all but in the pocket for them. And 8 elims, 9 elims, they are racking them up left and right. Only 1 player from Na'Vi remains, and Voindonkey ID have a really good opportunity to take a massive result for themselves here.
Voindonkey ID, they control a lot of space, and that little trench that sits through on that western side is so beneficial. Potato, though, down towards the south, is a very critical member of the squad right now. Cannot allow Na'Vi to get a little bit too close to them. Has to also provide that information back to where Enigma Galaxy are trying to push through from. They picked up a loot crate in the process, so they're nice and looted. Enigma Galaxy is ready for another fight here.
Incilio find a player, though, over towards Voindonkey ID from that east side. A little bit too bold. Potato could potentially get that res. Enigma Galaxy now with the impact frags. Westron goes down, and that is the high ground angle spotted, taken out. But the hovercraft is still on side blank. We know that there's plenty of mischief still to be had, but Enigma Galaxy, they're going to try and put a stop to it. They've isolated it. Do they see there's a player inside? I think they've spotted it. Force him out. And now around the edge of it, has to try and find a cheeky little frag. Gets Narvalo. Now a second chance, but SnowX does take him down. 2 players have fallen for Enigma Galaxy, and this is an opportunity for Voindonkey ID to move in with their 3 players from the west side.
3TN actually priming a nade for himself. It goes long, though. We'll get the damage numbers on it, and we'll probably send another through. Depends if they can get this res off or not. It goes long again. So for 3TN, unfortunate, they're not able to pick that one up. Narvalo looks for the heal. In comes a little bit of a smoke, a stun. In the process, Molotov's going down, and Enigma Galaxy scrabbling to get out of the way.
Trying to move away from the ordnance and successfully pulling themselves back up to 4 players will be a huge result, but they have to move in towards the territory held now by Voindonkey ID. You can see the roll-ups are coming through, the lay of the land favorable to Voindonkey ID to hold this western side, but the next circle shrinks directly to the middle blank, which means that if Enigma Galaxy can get rid of 3TN on this off angle, there's 2 ways it can go, right? As is fairly obvious, I'd imagine, but into the middle of this circle, it's not clear who would come out victorious out of these 2 squads. With the number advantage for Enigma Galaxy, though, they would be going into it ahead.
The radio tower in the middle, and all the squads will be radioing in their strategy going forward. Out comes the first phase from Potato, and he is boiled by 3TN. Luckily, Razor's there to assist. Enigma Galaxy might try to move off the back of that, though, as they circle round. So an interesting location at the end here, because you can isolate fights on either side, but it's good that Enigma Galaxy look to move out, but Ralph pushes back the rest of the team. This gives time for Voindonkey to reset.
Potato's back up. He's got that healing on board. He can start to stim back to full HP here. The navigation of this circle for Enigma Galaxy a little bit slower than maybe they wanted, as the zone will start to close to the middle directly in just a moment. Nade range is achieved for both of these rosters, but I think that they've bled it dry so far on the resources. Smokes plentiful for Enigma Galaxy, but nades a little bit lackluster on both sides.
Yeah, 6-4, but there's plenty of death crates around this location, so big chance to pick up more for both teams. 10 eliminations for our Indonesian squad of Void Donkey ID, who have done so much to get here, now look to prove themselves just that little further in PMGC. Enigma Galaxy starts to edge their way forward. Narvalo, proned. The buggy still being alive here is a massive boon to the squad. Getting scouting off the back of this is huge. Ralph's got to be careful though, but any information he can provide is going to be so important for the team to send nades over the top.
Discipline on the peak there from Void Donkey ID, not over-committing to it. You know you can be sprayed down, pinged out through that smoke. And Void Donkey ID with the challenge. Redox cooking one of first of, I'm assuming, is going to be about 6 or 7 nades that's going to fly in just a moment, but into the gunfight we go. Down into the dip, Razor not going to be able to take that shot. Instead, lines up between them, dips back in, gets that reload, moves forwards, gives them the slip. The runaround is there. Novello on the back line will find it, but there's trade-offs coming through. 2 players down. Vexy on the low ground is low, but holds his nerve. 2 versus 1. It's up to Vexy now, as Enigma Galaxy are able to keep it under control, finally able to shut it down from the east side. They roll up to the top of the hill and find the chicken dinner.
Potato lost in the sauce in those final moments, moving through the smoke. I don't think he knew exactly where Enigma Galaxy were. Parked right next to him, prone down next to a buggy. Fantastic so from Enigma Galaxy though, extreme control over that fielded area, especially on that northeast side. Sort of unexpected coming through Enigma Galaxy so early into this tournament as well, but they must be very proud of themselves here to start things off. Ralph leading the charge, and I think it's one of the few times we actually see Enigma Galaxy get a really strong result in an endgame with 4 players still alive. You can tell that these boys have been practicing a lot in the meantime between their group stage and now, and I think they're definitely on the rise, are this squad, looking so much stronger, and I think teams just cannot count them out anymore.
There is plenty of impressive performances over these last 2 matches. This time around, Enigma Galaxy able to find that chicken dinner. Void Donkey ID with a lot of points. It is definitely heating up to be one of the best PMGCs we've ever seen. Let's head back to the desk.
Well, Enigma Galaxy starting off strong here, winning a hot drop on Sanhok and winning a map here on Erangel, the first of 3 of the day. And honestly, the roster swaps that happened for this team, obviously when you compare them to Twisted Minds, working out so well for them. Such a phenomenal performance, and Max, you have to be happy to see your French comrades doing well.
Narvalo, let's go! Did you see me over there? Hello, Narvalo. No, realistically, I'm super happy. When we're looking at the old Enigma Galaxy, right, I was like, oh, they're a little bit too passive at times.
Yep.
Like, this roster is enabled so well thanks to the rotations. Narvalo, SnowX always willing to take the fights, and during this game, sure, they were somewhat passive in the early stage, which is fine. I think that's a great strat to pull off. But 7, they were third-partying so efficiently late game on the eastern side versus Incilio and Influence Rage. That third party alone is the reason we see them get this chicken dinner.
Even if we go back a little bit more, the way that they were able to take the fight to DRX, just get full control of the north of the circle, then after that, they heard the fight between Incilio and Influence Rage. They decided to go third party that. They were able to win it too. Now that we have gotten a chance to talk about Enigma Galaxy, congratulations, Void, on a great game. But I'm about to go in on you guys. And the reason why I'm about to go in on you guys, Void Donkey, is because you guys were a little bit too passive in these situations. Actually, way before these situations, you see that Enigma Galaxy and Incilio are going to be fighting each other. You don't even have to third party this. This is something you and I were talking about, Max. They could have just moved up and get higher control, but they decided not to do it, and it ultimately ended up costing them the game.
Exactly. Void did not have to commit to the fight that early on.
Yep.
All they had to do is to claim control of that late game circle. If they play those ridges you were highlighting during that game 7, and they just stayed passive and waited for the circle to push Enigma Galaxy their way, I think that was a clear chicken dinner going the way of Void, but unfortunately it doesn't go their way, and Enigma Galaxy claim the hill and get the win.
You know, we talked about Team Spirit earlier on, and we talked about Kitsune in particular having to adjust his in-game leading style from G Gladiators over to Team Spirit, but what about Raouf? I feel like he's one of the most improved in-game leaders this year.
Actually, when I was talking to Pecco on the Twitter space, he told me that they haven't really changed their style too much. It's just this roster, this new roster you highlighted earlier, Jason, is just well more suited to execute the playstand that Raouf had a while ago. So like it just seemed this is the team that Nigma Galaxies wanted for a while, and they finally have the star team that they can win a global tournament with.
It's not just one player. I feel like that's the main thing, right? If you think about the old
Yes.
Nigma, it was always like in regards to Coops. All right, can Coops be able to perform? Can the team put him in a great position? With now, I mean, we're seeing the stats right there in front of us. Everybody's being able to put up eliminations. Everybody's being able to put up numbers. They're working well together, and Raouf is doing a great job from it. Now, the reason why I was talking about Void Donkey earlier and why I was kind of being a little bit harsh on them, even though they did have a good performance, is because I seen this out of them already in league stage, where they just doubt themselves a little bit too long, or they maybe overthink certain situations and stop themselves from getting the position where ultimately they can win the game.
I get the thought process of, oh, we want to let the other teams fight, right? Yeah, I think
Yep.
Navi and Cilio, Nigma Galaxy, Influence Rage to the eastern side, I understand. But the thing is, you give an option to Nigma Galaxy to claim that hilltop to the east, they're going to run with it. Like, they are not going to make that mistake you made. They're going to claim that position, and they're going to gun you down instantly with a really cool PMWC S12K. That was very sick playing. But I have to highlight the skins. You know, they're kind of cool in games sometimes.
You know, let me throw a question to you guys here, right?
Yep.
Because obviously
Yes.
Void did have to go through group stage, survival stage, and last chance to get here. Do you think they're one of the teams who had the most benefit of having to go that route instead of just qualifying from group because the amount of reps they're able to get in?
For sure, 100%. The main thing with this team is that they had a lot of players that it was their first actual big tournament, big global tournament, and I feel like that experience of having to go through all that, you can see it through league stage. They just kept on improving, and credit to the coach too, because he was able to kind of make some switches between the team, not maybe tactical, but just giving them a break for whether it was just one day. It was the right play to kind of let them clear their mind, let them reset a little bit, and just remind them, hey, this is your first time that you're in this type of stage. Take your time, enjoy the process, and so far they definitely enjoy the process, and from what they've been able to learn from every single stage is showcasing even here in the Grand Finals.
I mean, talking about Defi, he said it's more about the mental game, not the strats they pulled off. It's the mental game that improved significantly throughout every stage of the league stage to get to this point in Grand Finals, and now they're ready. They're in the right mindset to go the entire way, maybe win PMGC, but maybe a little bit unfortunate for them at the start here because they're not willing to take the fight. But I think as we get through this first day, they might be like, okay, we should have sent it for it. Let's play more aggressive in our next games.
One team that's going to be kind of scratching their heads and saying, man, we should have done something different. Team Spirit, especially with Kitsune. Kitsune was in a great position, but they were just so split. So split, Max. I know we kind of have different ways of thinking in regards to what they should have done there within that position. I felt like Kitsune should have been able to back up because this squad was just a little bit scared to make that push where Kitsune was, because Navi was close by and also Alpha 7 would have had eyes on them during that rotation.
Yeah, I mean, you see, they're not on the first page of this game ranking, unfortunately. If they did regroup on Kitsune, or as you preferred, maybe having Kitsune go back with the team south of the road to maybe negate a push from Navi, which eventually happened, was a good strat. I don't care really what play they do, Seven. Just do it together. I feel like that play alone maybe would have allowed them to reach top 3 eventually this game.
Well, one more team I do want to touch on really quickly. It's going to be Incilio, and I'm going to touch on them in particular because I feel like they are the team who takes advantage of potentially the most meta-changing thing we've seen this year of the hovercraft more than any other team, and 3TN in particular.
They were staying in Milta for so long, and we know why. They were hunting for that hovercraft, and they found the hovercraft, and they sent it in the field, and realistically, we said it many times, they only had one. But one hovercraft alone, you see how far that got them? That was crazy. Just like in the field, like, yeah, I'm a tank now.
It helped them with the fight in regards to when they fought Influence Rage. That was the massive game changer between that fight. And then after that, I think if they would have had just enough time before Nigma Galaxy ended up third-partying them, we would have been telling